Have you ever felt stuck in a cycle where your body feels tired, your mind is overwhelmed, and everything around you feels heavier than it really is? That kind of feeling where waking up requires effort, where motivation disappears, and even the simplest things in the day seem too difficult. And worse, you even try to react, change your routine, eat better, do something for yourself, but nothing seems to work as it should. If you've ever experienced this, or are experiencing it, now this video is for you. We grew up hearing that what we eat affects our bodies, but what almost no one talks about clearly is how much what we eat also affects our minds. Science has been showing, with increasing force, that there is a direct connection between what we put on our plates and how we feel, between the quality of our food and the symptoms of depression, anxiety, anguish, irritation, and even panic attacks. What if I told you that adjusting the amount of calories, without exaggeration or extremes, can really help alleviate these symptoms? And no, it's not about going on a crazy diet, living on leaves, or punishing yourself with senseless restrictions. It's about understanding how your brain and body communicate and how food plays a key role in this dialogue. It's about discovering that when you learn to nourish your body intelligently, you gradually begin to recover your mental and emotional energy, and even that strength that seemed lost within you. Now answer me. How many times have you noticed that when you eat poorly, for days in a row, your mind also gets worse, that your anxiety increases, that your discouragement grows, that your body seems heavier, even without changing your actual weight? This is no coincidence. This is biochemistry. It's your body trying to show you that something is wrong. And the good news is that when you start to adjust the way you eat, even without changing everything all at once, emotional relief appears, mental clarity returns, your mood improves, and that invisible weight begins to fall off. But be careful. I'm not here to promise a miracle cure for emotional disorders. Depression and anxiety are serious issues and often require psychological and medical monitoring. What I'm saying is that the right diet can be a fundamental part of the treatment. It can be one of the pillars that sustain your mental health, along with therapy, social support, and self-care. And that's where the idea comes in that diets with fewer calories, if done with balance and nutritional quality, can alleviate symptoms. Because fewer calories does not mean fewer nutrients. It means less overload, less inflammation, less overstimulation that messes with the brain's neurotransmitters. And if this makes sense to you, if this topic touched you in some way, take advantage and subscribe to the channel right now. This space is for this, to help you understand your body and mind in an integrated way, without magic formulas, but with information, support, and real paths to a lighter life. And if you're already subscribed, leave a like on this video, because it shows me that it's worth continuing to bring this type of content. Now stop and think with me. Is what you eat on a daily basis helping or hindering you emotionally? Do your anxiety levels increase after long periods of consuming excess sugar, processed foods, and ultra-processed foods? Have you ever noticed how sometimes after a heavy meal, instead of feeling satisfied, you feel even more tired, unmotivated, sad for no apparent reason? There is an explanation for this. The intestine, which many people think is only for digestion, is actually our second brain. It is where we produce about 90% of serotonin, the neurotransmitter that makes us feel good. Now just imagine what happens when you consume foods that inflame the intestine every day. When you overload the body with sugar, trans fat, and excess sodium, the brain responds with irritability, fatigue, and anxiety. The mood plummets, motivation disappears, and then the person thinks they are just sad or weak, but in fact, the body is silently suffering from the lack of nutrients and the excess of negative stimuli. And this is where the idea of calorie moderation comes in. Because reducing calories strategically, without cutting out essential food groups, helps the body to breathe better. Digestion improves, insulin stabilizes, the production of neurotransmitters is regulated, inflammation decreases, and the brain begins to function with more clarity, more lightness, and more stability. And with that, emotional symptoms, especially those of anxiety and mild to moderate depression, tend to ease. And it's not just theory. Several recent studies show that a slightly low-calorie diet, rich in whole foods, vegetables, lean proteins, good fats, and low in ultra-processed foods, has a real impact on mood, sleep, focus, and disposition. And all this without the need for suffering, without radical diets, without extreme restrictions. The question that remains is, why doesn't anyone talk about this clearly? Why do so many people still think that the only function of food is to make you gain or lose weight? The truth is that food is information. It talks to every cell in our body. And when you start feeding your body what it really needs in the right amount, everything starts to come back into balance. And with balance comes well-being, comes clarity, comes the peace that so many people seek in pills or restrictive diets that only make the situation worse. And if you're here until now, you're probably looking for this change too. Maybe you've already felt the emotional impact of poor nutrition. Or maybe you're just curious to understand how food can help you get out of the emotional hole that seems to have no end. In either case, I can tell you with confidence, yes, it is possible to start a change from the inside out, and it can start with the next dish you make. So stay with me, because in the second part of this video, I'm going to show you how to apply this strategy in practice, with simple tips, meal examples, and a step-by-step guide to start reducing calories intelligently without harming your health, without falling into traps and, most importantly, respecting your own pace. And take the opportunity to comment below. Have you ever noticed a difference in your mood based on what you eat? I want to know if this has happened to you, because your comment can inspire others too. So let's understand how to put this into practice. Because I know that when we hear reducing calories, we immediately feel afraid of going hungry, of becoming weak, of having to weigh everything we eat. But that's not what we're talking about. The idea here is much more about quality and balance than about counting calories all the time. It's about making lighter, more nutritious choices that are more in line with what your body and mind really need. The first tip is, swap empty volume for nutritious volume. Instead of eating a large portion of white rice or pasta, which have a high glycemic index and can cause spikes in glucose and insulin, which are linked to anxiety, you can reduce this amount and include more vegetables on your plate. Add broccoli, zucchini, carrots, cauliflower, and green leaves. All of these are filling, satiating, provide vitamins and fiber, and reduce the calorie load without you having to eat less volume. You continue to feel satisfied, but with less inflammatory impact and less stimulus for emotional loss of control. Another simple and powerful strategy is to increase the presence of foods rich in tryptophan, which is the amino acid precursor of serotonin. This includes eggs, bananas, oats, chickpeas, pumpkin seeds, salmon, chicken, and even dark chocolate. Yes, in moderation it can help. The secret here is not to cut everything out, but to choose with more intention. Eat what truly calms you down, not what only gives you relief for 5 minutes and then comes with guilt. Now think about it. How many times have you sought comfort in food for a bad day? A sweet, a savory snack, a fast food to compensate for tiredness, anger, loneliness? This is common, human. But what we need to do is learn to create an internal environment where food doesn't need to be an anesthetic, where it is pleasure, yes, but also a tool for balance. And that's another important point, stabilizing meal times. Eating at very irregular times disrupts hormones and directly affects your mood. People who frequently skip meals or fast for long periods without proper guidance may experience more irritability, anxiety, and even more intense emotional swings. Therefore, a tip that works a lot is to create an eating routine with regular intervals, not to become a prison, but to stabilize your nervous system. Another powerful habit, drink more water and less sugary or stimulant drinks. Many people who suffer from anxiety consume large amounts of coffee, energy drinks, soft drinks, and chocolate drinks, thinking that they are giving them energy, when in fact, they are only fueling their inner agitation even more. Staying hydrated with water and calming teas such as chamomile, fennel, and lemongrass can make all the difference in your emotional state. Try replacing a cup of coffee with an iced chamomile tea on a day when you are feeling anxious. It may seem simple, but the effect on your body is real. And of course, reduce your consumption of refined sugar. Excess sugar is one of the greatest enemies of emotional stability. It gives you a peak of pleasure and energy, but soon after comes a sudden drop. And with it comes tiredness, irritation, and a feeling of emptiness. And the more you repeat this cycle, the harder it becomes to break out of it. So, a practical way to start is to reduce the amount of added sugar in drinks, avoid industrialized cakes and cookies on a daily basis, and replace them with fresh fruit, dates, or even 70% cocoa chocolate every now and then. Have you ever stopped to think about how you feel after a light lunch with real food versus after a meal full of fried food, soda, and artificial dessert? The emotional difference is noticeable. A light body generates a clearer mind. A balanced intestine generates a more stable mood. It's all connected. And when you understand this, you start to make peace with the process. You start to realize that taking care of your diet is not a punishment, it's a liberation. And I know you may be wondering, but will I be able to keep this up? And the answer is yes, if you are kind to yourself. If you understand that you don't have to do everything at once, that you don't have to cut everything out overnight. You can start with small changes, with more conscious choices, with realistic steps. Maybe you start by swapping white bread for whole wheat bread. Maybe you start by carrying a piece of fruit in your bag instead of buying a snack on the street. Maybe you just reduce the sugar in your coffee little by little. All of this counts. All of this adds up. And little by little, the results will show up, not only on the scale, but in the way you feel when you wake up, when you look in the mirror, when you deal with your days. Food can indeed be one of the keys to improving your mental health. And when we talk about a diet with fewer calories, it's not about restriction, it's about liberation. Fewer calories can mean less emotional weight, less irritation, less fluctuations, less impulsiveness, and more control, more lightness, more awareness, more health. And if you've come this far, it's because this touched you in some way. So tell me in the comments, which of these habits will you apply first? Which part of this video made the most sense to you today? I want to know because your story may be similar to that of many other people who will read it too. And of course, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, now is the time. Click below, activate the bell, and share this video with someone you know needs to hear this. Someone who is tired of suffering with their mind and doesn't know that they can start improving it with what they put on their plate every day. In the next videos, we will talk more about emotional eating, the gut and mental health, and how to create simple menus that help with anxiety and mood. So don't miss out.